You are listening to the Furlo Tech Podcast. I, James, founded and work for HPI, but don't represent HPI or any of their opinions.
Welcome to Season 8, Episode 306 of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Today is September the 25th, 2017. Every week, we definitively answer one question about the future of tech. To do that, we take into account many factors, including the companies involved, the people working for them, their marketing campaigns, and of course, the technology they're developing. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and having just won an Emmy for Best Co-Host is my brother, James Furlo.
Yeah, is it Emmy season now? I never know these things.
Okay. I know. We're actually recording this pre-Emmys, so we don't really know who won, but that's what it is. That's not why we're
good.
Yeah. So congratulations to you winners.
Congratulations to all of those winners.
You've done a great job. So the question that we want to answer today is what are the consequences of the Equifax data breach?
Great question.
It's kind of a big deal, yeah?
Yeah, it is. At least I think it's a big deal. So why don't you run through kind of the timeline, give us a quick history of what's happened, and let's talk about it.
Yeah, so in mid-May through July, so about a month, 2017, this year, Equifax was hacked, and somebody, we don't know who yet, gained unauthorized access to its data. And that data includes all sorts of information like usernames, social security numbers, your tax history, everything. They got enormous amounts of data for like 150 million Americans, which is...
Yeah, which if I remember correctly, if you factor for like kids and underage people, it's like most U.S. adults.
Yeah.
Not all, but most. Which is crazy.
Exactly.
And Equifax, they're a credit reporting agency, right? And this is the part that gets me. It's like you are in their system, even if you have you never opted into doing anything with it. You never actually directly shared any information with them. They're collecting it from a bunch of third-party people. And so you are in the system, whether you like it or not.
They pay or work with other companies who give them information. Their entire business model is based around, they collect that information, track your it's not a governmental organization, it's a third party. And they're heavily regulated, but they are a third party private corporation, and
one of three.
Yeah, they keep your data intact, and how they make their money is they basically do pre-credit checks. Anytime you get an email that says you're pre-approved for this credit card, that company paid Equifax a small amount of money for a ton of people to pre-approve you.
At least 143 million.
Yes. And it's, so yeah, that's their entire thing. And yeah, so that's all the data they got. Tons and tons and tons. This is gross negligence. It's looking more and more like the exploit that allowed them to get the information was through a exploit in an Apache struts is the framework that I believe that they were using. Basically,
an Apache.
It was an exploit.
I don't know what that. Apache.
Yeah, pretty much. And basically what happened was there was an exploit that was found. The Apache organization let everybody know, hey, there's an exploit, and this is the fix. All you have to do is update your servers. This won't be an issue. The problem with that being is that now everybody knows that there are vulnerable servers out there. If they're not patched, this is how you access the vulnerability.
And they didn't. Perfect.
For a month. And now this is not their only gross negligence. There's a security organization that was looking into them that one of their countries in South America, one of their companies that they own down there, their security stuff, they had their employee server, which gave them all sorts of like super user powers over the servers, was password protected with where the username was admin and the password was, you guessed it, admin.
Classic.
So, yeah. And they're just like, so it's just it's looking real bad for This wasn't like a really sophisticated hit. It was a really dumb move. So anyways, so that happened on Thursday, July 29th. So end of July, after they figured out there was an attack, or no, sorry. That at the very end of July, that's when they figured out that there was an attack, and they immediately stopped the intrusion. So the people couldn't access the information anymore. Tuesday, August 1st, and Wednesday, August 2nd, so a couple days later, three top executives from Equifax sell nearly $2 million worth of company stock, which they claim had nothing to do with it.
If it is only 2 days later and there's a weekend in between there, I don't know. They may not have known about it. And it is just poor timing, but boy, it does not look good.
Yeah, that's a bad look.
Bad optics.
Then a little over a month later, Thursday, September 7th, Equifax officially alerts the public.
Because I feel like had they known, and we as the people would have found out about it a lot sooner if it was more widely known. So I think it was pretty inner circle. But I think other executives would have been like, dude, you're an idiot. Don't do this. Anyways, but it does look bad.
It looks real bad. Equifax officially alerts the public on the 7th of September. So over a month after they discovered the attack and stopped it. They alert the public about the cybersecurity incident, provides a...
So wait, I heard places it was 3 months. Was it 3 or 1 month?
1. It was July 29th was when they discovered it.
I read it was like 3 months, but anyways.
Well, it was 3 months after the attack happened, or after the attack started. But it was from when they acknowledged that it was happening internally and stopped it.
Gotcha.
And then, so they launched a dedicated website for consumers to check if they were affected. Later on that night, the company also issued a statement saying 3 executives had no knowledge that the intrusion had occurred at the time they sold their shares, which is or isn't true. Now, what's really interesting about this website, there was quite a bit of a kerfluffle about it, because on one hand, it appeared that it would just sort of give random answers if you put information more than once. It would or wouldn't, and
so they're just technically incompetent.
Yes,
right. Is that? Like. I mean, that's the takeaway.
Yeah, they put together.
They did not hire A+ programmers. They got C programmers. Because let's be honest. If you're a programmer, you don't want to go work for Equifax. You want to go work for a startup or a company that's actually changing the world. And so they get the dregs. And this is what happens when you get the dregs.
Pretty much. And the worst part about it from an
optic... And I'm sure I'm insulting somebody. Yeah, you're insulted. Sorry.
Feel bad. Well, it's not my bad. So I'm not the one who did it. Yeah.
Be better.
So part of this whole deal was once they did the check, when I use finger quotes for that because it didn't really check anything apparently, they would forward you to a service that they were going to charge for that was basically identity theft protection. And signing up for it, they also had the thing of we'll waive the fee, but by signing up for it, you are also waiving your right to sue them later on for anything. And
it was interesting too, related to that. They had done they were part of a panel, and they'd actually said and written, the best way to grow your customer base and your revenue is to give away services like this for reduced costs or free for a limited amount of time. So it was wow, you're doing exactly what you said to do in order to earn more money. And you're not just free for life.
Yeah.
It's free for a limited amount of time. And you are now subscribed. We will start charging you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, man.
Right.
So bad. So mismanaged.
I know. It's just, it's
horrible. What a bungle.
Looks horrible on every level. Shares by September 8th, the next day, shares of Equifax had shed more than 13% of their trading value. Elizabeth Warren, tears into the company on social media for trying to push customers to give up the right to sue. Equifax releases a statement saying that its controversial arbitration language that appears on its emergency website will not apply to the cyber security incident. So they're basically saying, no, you can sue us, I guess.
The way it was written, it was weird. If you read it carefully, you could still sue for this. But then they So it was like, so it wasn't a red flag to them, but it was, man, if you don't know legalese stuff and you read it, you go,
Right.
wait, what is this saying? And it seems that way. But do you know how you can opt out of it? By the way, like that's their whole thing. They're like, oh, you can opt out if you want by mailing them a piece of a tree with letters on it.
Ah, yes.
Like, no, you can't check a box. You have to
Jeez.
mail us something physical.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So this is the big thing: is you can freeze your credit. I didn't know you can do this. Basically,
Yeah, I didn't know that
allow
either.
them to give information. They'll still continue to collect information, but they won't give it to anybody. So you can unfreeze it. Some states they require them to do it for free. California, thankfully, isn't one of those states, so it costs $10 for each of them. And to do that. Yeah, and they have these ridiculous requirements for how to go about doing it. This is the best part. They produce a PIN. You have to hold on to that PIN. If you don't have that PIN number is what you use to unfreeze your credit. So next time you buy a car, you unfreeze all of your credit accounts, you buy the car, then you freeze it again. You have to hold on to that PIN. That PIN was generated using like your personal ID and the time that you did it. And security experts were like, if I know the hour that you did it, I can crack your PIN within 30 seconds on my computer. Like, whoa. It's just, once again, gross negligence. These people are terrible at their jobs. And
how hard would it be to come up with just a random number generator?
PIN generator, just keep a log of all the, well, that's the thing is they didn't want to keep a log of the pins. And if it's time-based, then it's sequential and there's no way for there to ever be a duplicate. You don't actually have to keep a log.
Who cares if there's a duplicate?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It's a password effectively.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, they're dumb. They're really dumb, James.
Yeah. That is true. That is what we are finding out.
Exactly. So on September 13th, Equifax CEO is formally called to testify to Congress, blah, blah, blah. On the 14th, which was just a few days ago, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, as they're sometimes called, says it is investigating the massive data breach. Equifax shares fell 5% to $94.19 in heavy trading after earlierly touching $89. The lowest in February 2015. Then, as of September 15th, Friday, Equifax CIO and CSO, the chief IT guy and the chief security guy, are out. They're done.
Rightly so.
Yes.
Rightly so.
Yeah.
That seems more than appropriate.
Yeah. But this is the kicker. They're retiring, which I'm sure from a legal perspective means that they get that sweet golden parachute as opposed to whatever they're contractually obliged to get. So that's kind of how we got here, and it's just horrible. There was an interesting article that I read pretty early on by Josh Constantine of TechCrunch.
But before we talk about that article for football, I would like to let you know that this podcast, not only is it brought to you by listeners, it is brought to you by football, at least for now. It's a game. You sport football, and it involves pigskin. We recommend you football.
I wish we had more time to talk about it because their numbers are astounding. They're having
Are they bad?
Year after year, double-digit falls in rating. And
you know what? I watched highlights from week 1. I'm not surprised. They're actually bad. The quality of the play is pretty bad. Chiefs are ranked number 1 now, so that's something. Good job, Alex Smith.
Yeah, future Hall of Famer A. Smith.
So this podcast brought to you by Alex Smith. How about that?
That's actually way better.
He plays football.
Yes.
Thanks, Alex. My man.
So
that was a Rick and Morty reference, by the way. Just want to put that out.
Appreciate it. So the title of this TC article is a little bit naughty, I'll be honest. But it gets the point across. Effectively, what they in this article, it's pretty interesting, worth the read. But the big takeaway that I got is this article or this paragraph. For a quick recap, the Equifax breach, hackers stole data including full names, birth dates, social security numbers, home address for more than 143 million Americans. The data could be used to steal people's identity, take out fraudulent loans, power, so blah, 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 blah. And should have to trick them into, A brief look back on TechMeme surfaces plenty of other areas and attacks. Hacker group Dragonfly has penetrated operational networks for energy companies that control the power grids in US and Europe. Indefensible vulnerability in all modern cars could let attackers affect sensors, airbags, analog brakes. Hackers penetrated voting systems before the 2016 presidential election, but officials weren't warned, and the systems haven't been properly investigated for malware or alteration since. Hackers are fooling mobile carriers into letting them change their phone associated with a phone number, allowing the attackers to empty people's cryptocurrency wallets. Germany voting machines have been hacked to change vote tallies. And this is just the past month. And the point of this article and this lineup is to say that these data breaches are getting worse. It used to be that they'd get your password and they'd say, change your password, because if you use your password in multiple places, hackers will use this. But now it's not just companies that have your password or your credit card number. These are companies that have all of your information that you can't just go and change. These are supposed to be the ones that are super secure. These are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to, do this. And the problem is that every company has become a tech company, and now we need them all to be good tech companies, like the big boys, like Amazon, Facebook, Google, and Apple, that take security incredibly seriously and do everything they can to prevent breaks and everything.
Well, how do you do that? I mean,
So this article actually proposes laws,
regulation,
or users making better decisions, which is not.
Which again, you get something like Equifax. Like I didn't make a decision.
Yeah, that's the real problem. And
it's hard. Well, and it's hard too because it's like there is this singular number out there, which is super convenient to prove identity, your social security number. But it was never intended for that. It was never used for that. That was the Social Security Office's unique identifier number,
right?
Like their own thing. And everyone's kind of just piggybacked upon that one. And they're like, whoa, that was never the intent of the system. What are you doing?
Right.
And it's like, and because we've all started using that, which by the way, I was handing that number out yesterday, actually. Well, and it was funny. I did it and went, yeah, I guess I did just kind of give him that number. Sweet.
And I don't think most people know this, but the only really unique number for you is the last 4 digits. The first 7, the first
that's fair,
are a function of when you were born and where you were born. So if you were born in California on August 18th, you can easily look up what the first 5 digits of my social security number are. So it's the last.
Is that why they ask for your birthday in the last 4 digits?
Yep, because
doing math in the background.
They don't need the rest.
That's tricky.
Yeah. So if anybody, that's it. Which is
interesting. Makes me feel like I'm not giving you my whole number. Oh, you are.
That's what they want you to feel like.
Sneaky guys.
Yes.
So they're sneaky with their end users, but not so sneaky at thwarting hackers, which admittedly is probably a harder thing to do.
Well, yeah, one of them pays for the service, the other one doesn't. So who they're going to spend more time figuring out how to bake over the coals. And it's a real tough nut to crack. I mean, on one hand, it's like, I don't know. I don't know what I would do. I don't know what I would do in this situation. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this because
Do you care? Did you look up your to see if you were hacked?
No, I was hacked. I mean,
I think that's part of the other really interesting thing. I didn't look it up either. I was like, whatever. And I feel like that's the other scary part about things like this. You just get numb to it.
Yeah.
Like, yep, it was a hack. Okay. I mean, I have taken the step. I've got all different passwords for all my sites now, and they're all like crazy complicated. But I'm like, I just got that for passwords. But for things like this, I'm like, is there anything I can do? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's frustrating because there isn't an obvious answer. I know one thing I was reading there, like, we should turn it, like, use the Bitcoin framework to somehow track things or something. But it's like, okay, so the idea would just be if you get hacked for that, then it's a siloed hack, which is better than what just currently happened. But I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. Something like I almost want like, can I opt out of Equifax? Which I know you probably could, but then you go to a bank and they go, oh, that's weird. We don't have a way of evaluating your risk.
Well, yeah.
So
I mean, and that's the social contract that you've obliged to. If you want a credit card, if you want a home loan, if you want
I
student
do
loan,
want a home
if you
loan.
want, I don't know, if you want a car loan, if you want
No, I
in,
don't want that.
I don't know. Well, lots of people do, and then they
Wow.
wonder, why don't I have enough money later on, 3 or 4 years after they had this brand new spanking car? Um, that's not something that's been on my mind in conversations with friends. It's I don't know. I look at this, and a lot of this stuff, there's no opt in, there's no opt out, really and truly. Like
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
There might be an opt out, but there's not an honest opt out. So it's like, what do
So
you
do
do?
you somehow incentivize companies like with a big stick, which is probably his what he's proposing different laws to say, dude, if you mess up, like it's going to cost you. Therefore,
You
don't mess up.
Yeah, that is one of the suggestions. Violators. So the EU set up a thing that in 2018 that levies fines against companies that don't disclose data breaches within 72 hours, with some exceptions. Violators can get slapped with a penalty of up to 2% of their global annual revenue, which would have struck Equifax with over 60 million in fines.
That's nothing.
I know. It's just if you can, and the problem with that is if they'll do the quick calculation, they'll say, "This is how much it costs us. Can we save more? Can we save more of our value by waiting longer? Then yes, we'll wait longer."
I mean, I get that you don't want to bankrupt the company. There's a delicate balance here.
Yeah.
Ooh, I just got a line that says, my internet connection is unstable. I wonder what that
Yeah.
means. All right. It is. It has been all day. That's kind of weird. Well, I have no idea what I was saying. That's awesome.
You're talking about companies getting.
Oh
drunk
yeah,
like a
fine
pot.
line between like bankrupting them and having them feel the pain,
Yeah.
and yeah, 2% doesn't feel like enough. 5% feels like, oof, I
Well,
would not want to pay 5%.
What's weird is there's a certain part of me that really wants to see. I hope that Equifax gets taken to the cleaners, because it's like it's the only thing that'll stop them. It probably isn't fair, but there are three out there, and if Equifax comes out of this with more customers signed up into their charged service,
Oh my
and they
gosh.
make money in the long run on this, that's not going
That
to
would
disincentivize this sort of behavior.
Well, that's what happened with all like the mortgage stuff.
Exactly. The
Right?
whole too big to fail thing. It's just like there was small
And now
regulation.
they're bigger than they were when that all happened. So
Yep.
they're like, oh,
And
it all came out okay.
and they're leveraged again just because whatever. We're too big to fail. We'll get bailed out.
This is not an uplifting podcast. How do we turn this around? All right. How do we brighten this future? Because this is just making me upset, which I'll admit I was already not in a great disposition to start with before this podcast. But like, oh my gosh, these guys are killing me. And I'm super frustrated that it feels like there's nothing I can do about it. Other than, like you said, opt out of the social contract altogether and just go, you know what? Internet's done. I'm out. Or, you know what? Loans, that's for suckers. I'm good. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. I think that you can do small things like you can, freeze your credit. It's super annoying that they make it annoying because their entire business model is you not freezing.
Yeah.
But just do it anyways. Freeze your credit. Go through the.
What about like a
rigmarole.
LifeLock or identity? Is that the LifeLock one? Like, what about services like that? Do you know anything about them? Are they actually like? All I hear are ads, which are biased.
I just assume that they are exactly like.
It's just credit insurance, right? Like that's all I'm buying.
I've always assumed that they're like virus protection. If you were to call it credit insurance, I would actually be way more like open to what they are because what I've assumed they are is virus protection for your computer, the equivalent, which is to say they're good at catching the things that really aren't scary. They're terrible at catching the things that are bad for you. and they probably do a little bit of like, they're probably a two, that's probably exactly what they would describe them as. Because I think they do credit monitoring too, but they probably do credit monitoring simply because they're an insurance company. And if the insurance, and the fewer times they have to pay out, if they can catch it early, then they have to pay out less.
Right.
Which, maybe that's what it's worth looking into. And it's just rough. But yeah, a lot of this stuff, I think the big thing here is the big takeaway is we need a cultural shift that's going to take decades to the idea of everything's a computer company and it's important to be a good computer company. That's the thing that's the message that needs to be sent out, is that it's just, good corporate culture, that you gotta build little fiefdoms. And I think the only option that we have as consumers is, when we can, punish companies that mess up, and
punish them big time. All right, I'm on board. 10% of the revenue, boom, hand it over.
And honestly, millions of people, it would probably be safe to say that of 143 million people, you're probably going to ruin the life of a million people out of this breach. I'm A-okay with the CEO going to jail over this. Like, as though somebody died at their company.
Wow.
They're the one who's responsible. Make it so that CEOs are terrified of this. Make it so that if you can't be good with your users' data, you don't want to go into business. And they'll kick and scream about it and treat it like it's horrible. And that will take a cultural shift to get to the point where people are okay with that. But I think it requires something like that. Just to be like, you put the person at the top of the company in charge, the same way that if somebody dies, for gross negligence, it's the CEO that goes to jail. Like, for that same reason, you do the data breaches like this. You put it on the CEO directly, because then there's no excuse. They're the ones in charge. And, and from the top down, they'll hire good CTOs. They'll compete with Google. They'll compete with Apple for good CSOs and security officers. And, they'll just become, and just like OSHA works, it'll just become important. Just what happened.
It sounds
like horrible levels of regulation.
Dystopian. Yeah.
I know. But lots fewer people die in factories nowadays. I mean, that's the trade-off. They're not being good citizens of the world.
I don't like it. Yeah. Well, it's weird. It's not necessarily the corporations who aren't. It's a combination, right?
Yeah, it's true. There
are hackers out there who deserve just as much, if not worse, punishment too.
That is very true. But you can't assume you're going to find them.
Yeah, I know. That's tough. Well, that's lame. All right. I really want to end on a high note, and it's not going to happen. So that's okay. So our listener question for you guys is, was your information breached, and do you care? Do you care enough to comment about it?
Yeah, now that I think about it, that's probably a bad question. All right, corollary question. What would you be willing to do to the CFO or CEO?
Yeah. What punishments would you like to dole out?
Yeah.
That sounds good. Tell us about your big stick. That'd be awesome. So on that note, thanks everybody for joining us. We really do appreciate it. You can check out all the links to this show. It's going to be at furlobros.com/306. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes and Google Play. And we want to say thank you to a bunch of people. Jade, Skyopini on Yahoo had a very good timeline. Thank you very much. To Richard Lawler of Engadget, Thai Ong of The Verge, John Fingas of Engadget, Russell Brandom from The Verge, again, good job. Ooh, we got another Engadget one. Jessica Condit, and then Josh Constein from TechCrunch. Thanks everybody for writing great articles and tracking down what was going on. We really do appreciate it. And again, this podcast is sponsored by listeners just like you and Alex Smith. Thanks, Alex. My man. So with that, I am James Furlo, and my award-winning congratulations to the winner, Matthew Furlo, is my brother. Oh, that worked out. All right. On that note, we will talk next time.